The new, very conservative Attorney General for the state of Virginia is way more famous than state attorneys general usually are. He's only been on the job for about 4 months, but in that 4 months, Ken Cuccinelli has told Virginia colleges they couldn't have non-discrimination policies that covered gay people. Video surfaced in which he says he might not register his new baby for a social security number because, you know, that's how they track you. Audio tape surfaced of him giving legal advice to the birthers.
Someone's going to have to come forward with nailed down testimony that he was born in place B, wherever that is. You know, there's speculations, Kenya. And that doesn't seem beyond the realm of possibility.
We've also reported on the time he claimed his lawsuit to stop health reform would only cost the state of Virginia $350 because that was the filing fee, and he doesn't count staff time or something spent on preparing something like that. Then there was the story of him passing out lapel pins that showed a Confederate-era version of the Virginia state seal, one that conveniently showed a little less mythological cleavage. He's only been in office 4 months. But because he keeps doing stuff like that all the time, Ken Cuccinelli is not just Virginia's new Attorney General. Ken Cuccinelli is Virginia's world-famous wingnut Attorney General. But in a departure from his usual scandals, which are usually just about him stretching himself out so far to the right that he falls down, Ken Cuccinelli's latest scandal is a big one. It's a serious multi-state campaign contribution scandal involving other politicians as well as Mr. Cuccinelli. And his response to this scandal so far has been bizarre. The scandal starts in Florida with this guy, Bobby Thompson. Bobby Thompson purports to be the director of development for a big nonprofit charity that he says has chapters in dozens of states. It's called the U.S. Navy Veterans Association. The group raises money through phone solicitations, and it claims to provide assistance to Navy veterans. Now, even though he lived in Florida, Mr. Thompson of the U.S. Navy Veterans Association gave more than $67,000 to political candidates in Virginia last year. So we have Bobby Thompson, a Florida man running a nonprofit veterans group, donating tens of thousands of dollars to statewide office seekers in Virginia. It's a little weird, right? Well, after the election, Mr. Thompson's nonprofit convinced one of his campaign recipients, a state senator, to introduce a bill that would allow Thompson's group to solicit donations in Virginia without registering with the state. By early March, the bill had passed both the state House and the state Senate unanimously. Who's against letting a veterans charity ask people for money, right? But then on March 21st, this story hit newsstands in Florida. Turns out the St. Petersburg Times had been investigating Bobby Thompson and the U.S. Navy Veterans Association for 6 months. The Times learned that the address listed as the association's national headquarters was a rented mailbox at a UPS store, as were most of its purported state chapter addresses. The newspaper also found no evidence of the existence of any of the association's reported officers, as in they couldn't verify that any of the people listed as officers of the organization were real people. No one supposedly associated with the group could be proven to exist, except for Bobby Thompson. Among the Times' other revelations about the, quote, charity apparently being run and staffed entirely by Bobby Thompson, on its 2008 tax return, the association said it used about 1% of its $4.2 million income for cash grants to paralyzed veterans, public broadcasting stations, and other nonprofits. The other 99% paid for administrative expenses, educational materials, and what they called direct assistance to veterans. The group refused to share any documentation with the St. Petersburg Times as to what they meant by direct assistance or what might specifically account for where all of its millions of dollars were spent. The Times also learned that the telemarketing firms used by the U.S. Navy Veterans Association to solicit funds, they've been charged in various states with knowingly breaking the law, using repeated harassing calls to collect pledges, and even with telling people that they are responsible for pledges they didn't actually make. In other words, it looks like a fake charity scam and it quacks like a fake charity scam. Since the St. Petersburg Times investigation was published, Bobby Thompson, the only provably real person associated with the U.S. Navy Veterans Association, has suddenly disappeared. He has vacated the Florida duplex he had lived in for a decade, and he left no forwarding address. His organization is now under investigation in 3 states. So that's what's happening with Bobby Thompson and his charity group in Florida, right? Now back to Virginia. Mr. Thompson's tens of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions that nobody can explain. After all this was revealed about this scam McScammerson, the people who received those donations found themselves in some hot political water. The state senator who introduced the bill to give Bobby Thompson free rein to solicit donations in Virginia without getting his group licensed, when she read the St. Petersburg Times expose, she made a frantic last-ditch effort to kill her own legislation. She says she asked the governor to veto it, but he had apparently already signed it into law. But beyond the problem of having just passed a bill designed to aid and abet the fundraising efforts of a guy who's under investigation in 3 states, there's also the problem of having received these presumably now tainted political contributions from this guy. The duped and remorseful state senator got $1,000 from Bobby Thompson. She says she plans to donate it to a real charity. The Virginia House Speaker got $2,000 from Bobby Thompson. He also plans to donate it to an established charity. Virginia's governor, Bob McDonnell, got $5,000 from Mr. Thompson. The governor is also donating that contribution to a legitimate charity. So $1,000, $2,000, $5,000. Do you want to know how much the Attorney General got? Want to know how much Ken Cuccinelli got from Bobby Thompson? He got more than $55,000 from him. The second largest individual contribution Cuccinelli got from anybody last year came from Mr. Veterans Charity Quacks Like a Scam. And guess what Ken Cuccinelli is doing with that money? Go ahead and guess what Ken Cuccinelli is doing with the $55,500 that he got from the guy who's under investigation for running what is at best a really sketchy operation and at worst a criminally fraudulent enterprise masquerading as a charity for veterans. Guess what he's doing with the money? Go on. Guess. He's not giving it to a real charity. He's keeping it. Cuccinelli's campaign director told the Richmond Times-Dispatch, quote, "If Mr. Thompson was convicted of wrongdoing relative to the misappropriation of funds, and contributions to our campaign came from money that was supposed to go to active duty military or veterans, we would donate those contributions to military support organizations here in Virginia. But not otherwise." I mean, fair's fair. Bobby Thompson has not, in fact, been convicted of anything yet, if that's going to be your standard for accepting campaign contributions. But since the St. Petersburg Times expose turned up so much evidence of potential fraud, and since Mr. Thompson's organization has just been given license to freely solicit donations in Virginia without being licensed, and since, you're the Attorney General of Virginia, Mr. Cuccinelli, maybe you want to start some sort of investigation of your own? Look into it? Maybe as the state's top law enforcement official? No, not that either, huh? Yeah, according to Cuccinelli's press secretary, quote, "It would be atypical for the Attorney General's office to initiate an investigation into a nonprofit." Some might say it would also be atypical for an Attorney General to keep a $55,000 campaign contribution from a man whose charity is under investigation in 3 states, who's gone missing, and who appears to be a rip-off artist exploiting veterans. That might also be seen as atypical. But in Ken Cuccinelli's world, what is normal, really? Joining us now on the phone is Virginia's Democratic House Minority Leader Ward Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Appreciate your time.
Rachel, it's a delight to be with you, yes.
What do you make of Mr. Cuccinelli's rationale for not giving this money back?
He ought to give the money back. I mean, it was a huge contribution, even for a statewide office holder. And any reasonable person looking at the St. Petersburg reports, he's now under investigation, this Mr. Thompson in New Mexico. I think Florida is about to initiate an investigation. I mean, it just smells. And he should give the money back.
Mr. Cuccinelli's office says that he's not investigating the organization, in addition to not giving the money back. He says he's not investigating because it's not his job to do that. They say it's the responsibility of the State Office of Consumer Affairs to do that, and Attorney General Cuccinelli doesn't want to get involved for that reason. What do you make of that?
Well, in my other life, I'm an attorney, and I actually checked the Code of Virginia today, and in that same section, it gives the Attorney General the right to investigate. And so I looked at the code section just a few minutes ago. It's Certainly it's a criminal violation to illegally solicit funds, and he could be prosecuted. So I'm not buying in that he can say, oh, well, it's somebody else's responsibility to investigate. Of course he can investigate. He's the Attorney General.
Now, Mr. Armstrong, you were not among Bobby Thompson's campaign recipients, but he did give money to members of both parties in the state legislature in Virginia.
That's correct.
And state administration. Why do you think he made all these donations to candidates in Virginia?
Well, it certainly appears that he wanted something. He wanted some type of favorable treatment. Of course, you know, that at least that was never asked, or I don't think any of the conversations any of the elected officials had with representatives. They never talked with Mr. Thompson, but there was never anything asked for. But in any event, I think certainly when the senator found out that there was something afoot, she did everything she could to try to put the brakes on this thing.
Do you think that law that was passed, I guess inadvertently now, since she tried